There's a moment in Oppenheimer, early, before the bomb, before the trial, where Cillian Murphy sits alone in a room and says nothing. No line, no movement, just a face holding still. And something happens in the audience that has nothing to do with J. Robert Oppenheimer, because we've seen that face before. In a Gotham asylum, on a beach in France, in a dream that collapses in on itself. 18 years of watching Christopher Nolan put Cillian Murphy in impossible situations and watching and survive them. So when he sits in that room, we already know what the space carries. We feel the weight before the film tells us to. Nolan didn't write that feeling into the script. He cast it. This is what nobody talks about when they talk about Christopher Nolan. The time manipulation, the practical effects, the IMAX photography, the sound design that moves through your chest like weather. All of it is real. All of it matters.
And now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
But underneath all of it, running through every film he's made for the last 25 years, there's a quieter system. One that works on you without you knowing it's working. Let's start with the facts, because the facts alone are strange. Michael Caine has been in 8 Christopher Nolan films. Batman Begins, The Prestige, The Dark Knight, Inception, The Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet. Every single film Nolan made between 2005 and 2020. Not most of them, all of them. At some point, Caine stopped being cast and started being written in. He said it himself, "I'm his lucky charm, so if there's no part in the movie for me, he writes one." Think about what that means. A director of Nolan's precision, a man who engineers every frame, is creating characters not because the story demands them, but because he wants a specific face in the room. That's not casting, that's something else entirely. Cillian Murphy, 6 films, always precise, always in the margins. Batman Begins gave him a villain. Inception gave him a target. Dunkirk gave him a broken soldier, with no name, no backstory, no arc. For 18 years, Nolan kept bringing Murphy back, and kept him just out of center frame, until Oppenheimer, when he finally handed him the whole film and said, "Now." 18 years of supporting roles, then the lead of the decade. That's not an accident. That's a slow build towards something. Tom Hardy, 3 films. Each time, Nolan covered more of his face. Inception, a wool cap and a jawline. The Dark Knight Rises, a mask that swallowed everything below the eyes. Dunkirk, a visor that left almost nothing. Marion Cotillard, 2 films. Both times the most beautiful person in the room. Both times the one who destroys everything. Now step back. This isn't a director who found reliable performers and kept calling them out of comfort. The choices are too deliberate. Who comes back? In what role? With how much screen time? At what point in their career? All of it has a logic behind it. Nolan has said in interviews that he never writes scripts with specific actors in mind. He writes the character first, then he casts. Which means every single time one of these faces returns, it's a conscious re-choice. A fresh decision made with full awareness of everything that face already carries. Not habit, a system. But he'll tell you he doesn't think about the actor at all when he's writing. So how does the same face keep ending up in the same chair? Here's the thing about Nolan. He'll tell you, straight-faced, that he never writes with specific actors in mind. He writes the character, then he finds who fits. That sounds like discipline, like artistic purity. But then Michael Caine shows up in 8 consecutive films, Cillian Murphy in 6. Tom Hardy keeps losing more of his face each time. And you start to wonder, if Nolan genuinely isn't thinking about these people when he writes, how does he keep finding his way back to them? The answer is in a line he used once to describe his own job. He said his job is making decisions about how all the great talent that I'm working with blends into a single consciousness. A single consciousness. Not a cast list, not a collection of performances. One organism, one emotional nervous system the audience experiences as a whole. That's a very different way of thinking about filmmaking. Most directors think about characters. Nolan thinks about the accumulated weight of the people playing them, and how that weight moves through the audience without them realizing it. So when he says he doesn't write for specific actors, he's probably telling the truth. He's not typing Cillian Murphy's name in scene 1, but he's thinking about what that character needs to feel like. And when the draft is done and he looks up and asks who carries that feeling, the same faces keep appearing. Not because they're comfortable, because they've already done the work of meaning something. The audience has spent years building a relationship with these faces across multiple films. Nolan didn't manufacture that. He noticed it, and then he made it load-bearing. That's the gap between what he says and what he does. He doesn't cast from memory. He casts from the audience's memory. But what exactly does each face mean inside his films? What is the specific emotional frequency he's tuning when he calls Cillian Murphy instead of someone else? Every director has a visual language, a way of moving the camera, a way of cutting. Nolan has something else too, a casting language. Each returning face carries a fixed emotional frequency, not a character type, that's too simple, a frequency, something the audience tunes into the moment they see it, before a word is spoken. Michael Caine is the moral weight of a father who knows more than he's allowed to say. Every time he appears, behind a desk, in a leather chair, at the edge of a scene, he brings the gravity of earned wisdom, of someone who has already lived through the consequences you're about to face. When he tells Bruce Wayne to burn everything in The Dark Knight Rises, you believe it. Not because of the dialogue, because it's Michael Caine. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, Alfred has always known how this ends. Cillian Murphy is the haunted man who survives things he shouldn't. There's something in those eyes, a stillness that reads as gamage, as someone who has seen the worst of what people are capable of and came through it carrying the cost. Nolan used that quality as a villain in Batman Begins, as a target in Inception, as a ghost in Dunkirk. The specific role changed each time. The frequency stayed identical. Tom Hardy is controlled power hiding something broken underneath. Put him in a mask, take away half his face, strip every conventional tool an actor uses, and he fills the void with pure physical intention. There's always something violent just beneath the surface, something that has been compressed until it's dense enough to collapse. Nolan recognized that and kept testing it, kept reducing the resources until there was nothing left but the thing itself. Marion Cotillard is the beautiful thing that will destroy you. In Inception, she is Cobb's dead wife, a memory that became a weapon. In The Dark Knight Rises, she is the ally who was never an ally. Both times, the warmth she projects is exactly what makes her dangerous. Nolan delayed production on The Dark Knight Rises to make sure she could be in it. He needed that specific quality. He couldn't substitute it. None of these actors are only these things. They have full careers, full ranges, lives outside Nolan's universe. But inside it, they represent specific emotional notes. And no one composes with them the way a musician composes with instruments. Not for a general sound, but for that sound, the one that lives in the chest. This is why the films feel the way they feel. Not just constructed, inhabited, like the world already existed before the camera arrived. And we're at the halfway point. We've mapped the numbers, the contradiction between what he says and what he does, the emotional frequencies each face carries. But here's what we haven't touched, and this is the part that actually changes how you watch film. It's not about what these actors mean to Nolan, it's about what they mean to you. And the way he weaponizes that, in the scene where Michael Caine dies in Interstellar, and in what he did to Tom Hardy's face across 3 films, is one of the most calculated things any director has done in the last 20 years. Don't close the tab. What Nolan does with the audience is the whole point of this video. Subscribe if you're not already in. Here's what nobody says out loud about Christopher Nolan. He doesn't just direct actors. He directs the audience's relationship with actors. There's a difference, and it matters. My mom has seen Inception 3 times. Last week, I texted her, just to see. I asked what she actually remembered from the film. She texted back in under a minute. She said, and I'm reading this exactly as she sent it, "That quiet man with the sad eyes. I don't know who he is, but every time he shows up, I feel like something bad is about to happen to him, and I don't want it to." I asked she knew who directed it. She said no, and then she asked if that was important. She's watched that film 3 times. She doesn't know Cillian Murphy's name. She doesn't know Christopher Nolan exists. And in one message, she described the exact effect Nolan spent 18 years engineering. That's not a coincidence. That's the system working exactly as designed. When Michael Caine appears on screen, you don't arrive neutral. You arrive with 8 films worth of feeling about that face. Alfred, Cutter, Professor Brand. A father figure who has watched over protagonists you already loved, who has buried them, who has told them the truth when no one else would. That history lives in you. You built it over 15 years of sitting in dark rooms watching him. Nolan knows it's there, and he uses it. In Interstellar, Professor Bram dies with a secret. He spent his entire life letting the people around him believe in a plan he knew was impossible. And when the scene comes, Caine lying in a hospital bed, the lie finally surfacing, the weight of that moment isn't just about this character in this film. It's about every time Alfred told Bruce Wayne the truth, every time Cutter trusted the magician, every time Michael Caine looked at someone on screen with that combination of warmth and sorrow. Nolan is spending accumulated emotional credit the audience built without being asked to, credit they didn't even know they had. That's not manipulation in the cynical sense, it's craft in the deepest sense. The understanding that cinema is not just what happens on screen, it's the conversation between what's on screen and everything the audience carries into the room. Most directors make films for a general audience. Nolan makes films for an audience that has already seen his other films. He builds a world, yes, but he also builds a relationship between his recurring cast and the people who keep showing up. Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer is the clearest example. By 2023, audiences had spent 18 years watching him survive Nolan's worlds in the margins. Always precise, always damaged, always still standing at the end. So when Nolan finally centers the entire film on that face, when the camera stops moving around Murphy and just holds on him, the audience already trusts what they're about to feel. Nolan didn't build that trust in Oppenheimer. He built it across 6 films, and then he collected. And that raises a question that goes far beyond Christopher Nolan, one that changes how you watch every film you'll ever see after this. So, why does Nolan cast the same actors? The easy answer is trust, familiarity, a director who found people he works well with and kept calling them. That answer isn't wrong. It's just not the whole truth. The whole truth is this. Christopher Nolan understands something about cinema that most directors never fully reckon with, that the audience is not a passive receiver. They are an active ingredient. They walk into every film carrying everything they've ever watched, everyone they've ever loved on screen, every feeling they've built across years of sitting in the dark. Most directors ignore that. They make films as if the audience arrives empty. Nolan makes films as if the audience arrives full, and he builds accordingly. Michael Caine is not just an actor he trusts. He's a vessel the audience has spent 15 years filling with feeling. Cillian Murphy is not just a reliable performer. He's a face the audience has watched survive impossible things, and that survival history becomes subtext the moment he appears. Tom Hardy is not just physically extraordinary. He's proof that the feeling the audience carries about a person can outlast the face entirely. This is what the recurring cast is really for. Not comfort, not habit, not loyalty, though all of those things are probably true too. It's a system for writing with the audience's memory. And once you see it everywhere. Not just in Nolan, in every director who returns to the same faces, in every performance that hits harder than the script alone can explain, in every moment where you feel something and can't quite say why. You're not just responding to the character, you're responding to every version of that person you've ever watched. You're responding to time itself. That's what cinema does at its best. It doesn't just tell you a story, it uses your story, everything you've brought into the room, and folds it into the film until you can't tell the difference between what's on screen and what's inside you. Nolan figured that out early, and he's been building with it ever since. Every film, every face, every return, not an accident, a conversation. So here's the question I keep thinking about. Which face does it to you? Not just in Nolan, anywhere. Which actor, the second they appear on screen, already has you? Before a word, before a scene, just from walking into the frame. Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if you want to keep seeing film this way, subscribe. We do this every week.